You focus on what truly matters. For Adrenaline, what matters is you. The people who power organizations. We studied you. We understood you. We went through a reinvention so that you could be game changers. Leverage your potential to the power of Max. Adrenaline Max. The game changer is here.
Hello everybody, a very good evening and a warm welcome to the session, The Great Resignation Wave, Time to Redesign Our EVPs. My name is Mercy and I work with Odessa as an HR business partner, and I will be your host for this session. I have Ranjit with me as our co-host. Ranjit works with Plant Lipids. The past 7 months have seen a tidal wave of resignations across organizations with staggeringly high numbers. Amid the disruption caused by the epidemic in the workplace, the companies are struggling to address the resignation challenge. A recent and an interesting article from McKinsey stated that 40% of employees are somewhat likely to leave their jobs in the next 3 to 6 months, and about 53% of employers say that they are experiencing greater turnover, and most expect the problem to continue or worsen over the next 6 months. This session will explore the key trends and best practices related to the Great Resignation. And to have this discussion on the most interesting and burning topic, we have our star-studded panel of speakers who will be sharing their perspectives, thoughts, and on the big resignation wave. It is my greatest pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Raksha Agrawal, Head of Talent Acquisition for SAP in India and Technology Recruiting APJC. Raksha is a seasoned talent acquisition leader with 18 plus years of experience in managing and setting up global teams, recruitment process and systems, and driving some major transformation to drive business strategy into talent acquisition plans. She has worked with some of the biggest tech organizations like Apple, Amazon, and Honeywell in her past stints. Raksha is passionate about driving inclusion and diversity in the workplace. And second up on our panel, we have Sudeep Ralhan, VP People, Walmart Global Tech India. Sudeep Ralhan is the Vice President, People at Walmart Global Tech India. He is responsible for driving the people agenda and embedding a culture of inclusion and innovation at our India Development Center for a workforce spread across Bangalore, Gurgaon, and Chennai. After completing his post-graduation in business in 2001, Sudeep has worked across the IT, BPO, and FMCG industries in a diverse set of roles spanning multiple geographies. Prior to joining Walmart, he played strategic leadership roles with organizations such as GSK, Consumer Healthcare, and Accenture. Sudeep is passionate about driving about diversity and leadership and likes working with leaders who are values-driven and forward-thinking. On a personal front, he loves to read, watch horror movies, and is always on the lookout for new places to eat. And lastly, we have Mr. Sahil Nahir, Senior Associate Director, HR, KPMG. Sahil Nahir is an astute professional in the human capital domain, extremely passionate about creating possibilities by working his way through relationships and human psychology. He is currently responsible for the people function at KPMG in India's Delivery Center, ICOE. Over the last 11 years at the firm, he has played multiple roles and led high-performing teams. He is a great regular columnist, keynote speaker at various leading industry bodies and academic institutions. He truly believes you really get what you got when others get what you got. With that, it's time for us to move into our discussion. But just before that, we have a poll coming up for you, audience. So here we go. Ranjit, would you like to launch the poll, please? The Great Resignation is fundamentally different from previous downturn and recovery cycles. Why? Okay. We see a high engagement from the audience. Keep it coming. So dear speakers, that's the metrics for you. The factors driving great resignation such as flexibility, work-life balance, and for that we have 21 plus votes, and it's still coming. The second one's got 33 plus percentage, and so on. Okay, I think we can close. With that in the backdrop, we can jump right into the discussion. Thank you, Ranjit. All right. So either all or most of the organizations would have been impacted by the Great Resignation wave. So let's begin with the big question. How has the Great Resignation impacted your organization, and what has your approach been towards it? So this is a question for all our panel members here. So let's begin with Sudeep. Would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you. See, I feel that this question and this thought needs to be answered more broadly, right? The entire 1.5 years of the last, since the pandemic began, has been a very, very cataclysmic period for everyone concerned. So I don't think we need to boil it down to just the resignation. I mean, this is just a symptom. So yes, I mean, the talent ecosystem is very, very vibrant and active, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know that my TA colleagues on the call may differ from me because they have their work cut out during this period. But the reality is that every single organization has been impacted with this entire vibrant ecosystem. But it's actually a good thing. It obviously introduces a lot more diversity and innovation into the ecosystem by the churn. And secondly, and I feel more importantly, it forces organizations to truly relook at themselves, to introspect, to reflect, and to really figure out how we are going to prepare for this in the future, and what kind of deep-rooted changes is it creating that we need to think about. That's it.
Thank you, Sudeep. Raksha, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you, and pleasure to be here. I think how it's impacted the overall industry is that there's been growth tremendously coming in from digital acceleration that has happened, be it global MNCs, be it startups, etc. And obviously, my organization is not untouched. Last year, 2020, wasn't affected as badly, but as we have seen this year, starting Q1 of this year, has been the market has been volatile, and like Sudeep said, TA has been probably the most busiest of all. Now, what have we done about it? We have looked at various aspects as an organization on why are employees leaving. There could be multiple reasons. It has to be a holistic view on why are employees leaving. And then what do we do to attract the talent? What do we have? What is our employee value proposition, both for internal employees and when we are attracting? What are the elements that we are looking at? It cannot only be just a plain, simple, vanilla employee value proposition that attracts talent or helps our employees to be there. Some people prefer work-life balance. Somebody else prefers purpose, etc. So as we dive deep into it, we would look at what are some of the factors that we are looking at when we are looking at attracting talent. Thank you.
Thank you, Raksha. Sahil, we would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. Thanks, Mercy. Let me take a step back, right? Let me first thank NHRD Bangalore for pulling this thing together, and Shraddha for inviting me over. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be with all of you. I think before deep diving into the question, Mercy, if you have to just take 2 steps back and zoom out a bit, I think we've actually come to a stage where we've sat back and questioned what is normal. For once, the whole race that each one of us were on, we've paused to reflect, what are we really chasing? And if you have to really look at this, I think that has been one of the fundamental shifts that have happened in the last 12 to 18 months. That's point number 1. Point number 2, think of it this way. Through generations over the last couple of decades, we've really seen it oscillating between an employer's market sometimes to it being an employees market when hot skills really came into space, right? And therefore, this is no different. In wave one, we really saw where many organizations tried their best to protect jobs, to protect compensation, but some had to take the tough call of letting people go. Post wave two, what happened? The people who didn't crystal ball gaze as well didn't really build a bench. And therefore, when the entire world sat back and questioned what was normal, you saw a lot of people who said, listen, I don't want to do this 16-hour day. I don't think that the kind of money that's coming in is worth my mental peace. And more importantly, maybe I can contribute my time to something else that will make me more happy, because happiness has no value beyond money. It's priceless, right? And when happiness is priceless, why attach a price to my time that I'm renting out to a particular organization at what cost? So I think a lot of us have been forced to pause and reflect and answer some of these questions that for sure are not easy questions to answer.
Thank you, Sahil. Those are fantastic 3 points, and actually gives a segue into our next questions also. So my next one is for you, Raksha. With a view to understanding who is driving the Great Resignation and taking a targeted approach towards it, which segment of the work population in your observation is experiencing higher turnover rates?
I think let's go back to what I was saying. It's not a particular segment in my view. It is about why do employees stay and why do employees leave. So there could be different reasons on why certain people or certain segment of the employee population is leaving. It could be they don't feel valued and appreciated. They don't feel happy at work. They don't feel respected, or they are not working in an environment which makes them feel fairly compensated. I mean, there could be a number of things. Depending on what is it that drives them at work, it could be Gen Y, Gen X, millennials. Every individual is different. Each segment is different. A lot of people work and get associated because they find a sense of purpose with an organization. They feel the impact that they are creating for the societies that they live in is immense. And that's what drives them. If, let's say, we did a small survey, and in fact, we did a very comprehensive survey. And we found that some of the reasons why employees leave is because they have probably poor management and leadership. There's lack of challenge, dysfunctional teams, lack of recognition, lack of connectedness. In fact, that's a very important factor nowadays. We have new people joining in. They don't feel connected to the organization. They don't feel connected to the teams. All of these factors together probably are driving this. In addition to this, the talent market has great opportunities, probably unprecedented opportunities that we have seen in the last few years. So every individual thinks about what is it that they want. Picking up from what Sahil said, is it the price that I pay for my happiness, for my peace of mind, is what matters to an individual. So people are looking at early retirements, people are looking at alternative careers. I think all of this is driving this wave.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raksha. So McKinsey's article on Great Resignation or Great Attraction, which was pretty famous in some time, stated that employees crave investment in human aspects of work, which Sahil, Raksha, and Sudeep, all of you have touched upon in some shape or form in your conversation. But specifically, if you have to elaborate and talk a little more about this particular topic, what we want to understand from you is people are looking for a revised and renewed sense of purpose at work. So what is your perspective? What in your perspective are the factors that are driving the Great Resignation? If you can elaborate on that and speak a little more, it will be of great help for our audience.
Sure. So I think, Mercy, let's look at this in this manner, right? People on the call, and I see there are 197 and the number is increasing of the participants who've joined in. And a lot of them, I'm sure, would have made a lot of money in the stock market in the last 12 to 18 months with the boom that's really happened, right? I think talent is no different than the talent stock market, okay? And I'm trying to draw an analogy between stocks at the stock market and talent in the talent stock market. And if you look at it this way, think of it, right? Anybody who has experienced a bull run will typically see that people who have reinvented themselves with the changing times in terms of their skills have not only left their jobs, leave purpose for a moment, I'll come back to purpose, but not only have left their jobs, but have been pulled with multiple offers at 3x, 4x. Because if a particular person has left their organization, and Raksha's nodding her head being from the IT space, exactly knowing the challenges, because if today I'm sitting at 10, I have an offer of 15, I will now negotiate my next offer on 15 and not on 10 because I anyway have 10 in my hand. And therefore, you've seen how it's multiplied, typically how a stock goes on a bull run. Now, if I have to ask you, we all are HR professionals here, think of it. What are the two emotions? And I want to just engage with the audience here with your permission, Mercy. Everyone on the chat, why don't you tell me, what are the two emotions that drive stock market behavior? There are two key emotions that drive stock market behavior. Anyone? Why don't you go on the chat? We love reading your responses. Let's make this more participative. What do you think are the two emotions that drive stock market behavior?
We hear insecurity, greed, fear, anxiety.
Brilliant. We've got the answer. It's fear and it's greed. These are the two primary emotions that drive any kind of behavior at the stock market. Bring it back to talent, ladies and gentlemen, and think about it. People who are not reinventing themselves are feeling fearful. Jobs are changing. Jobs of yesterday won't be there tomorrow. And therefore, what are the skills of tomorrow that you are upskilling yourself with today? Question number one. And the second is there is no end to greed because we're all humans, right? And therefore, the fundamental question that we need to answer today is, if I take money away, what keeps the stickiness factor of people in my organization, in your organization, in 100 people's organization? Because there is no end to money, because that's the race to the bottom. Today, if I have to pay someone 100, Sudeep will pay 200, Raksha will pay 300, Mercy, you will pay 400. The fundamental question we need to answer is, if I have to keep compensation aside, what are we doing as India Inc.? What are we doing as our individual organizations that is creating the stickiness factor, which I typically call a sense of belonging? Back to you, Mercy.
That's a fantastic one to land with, Sahil. So we'd like to hear more from you, Sudeep. Would you like to add more to that, please?
No, I'll probably differ from Sahil a little bit, though. I get exactly the analogy that that Sahil spoke about, but I do believe, and you quoted the McKinsey report, and there are plenty of others as well, that during this period, people have also taken the time to step back and reflect and figure out what purpose means for them, what life means for them, and really contextualizing their work with that and juxtaposing it. I think that really is what people are thinking about and what is driving a lot of the talent churn at this point, right? But the question for ourselves, and a provocative question, is what were the organizations doing while all this was going on, right? Where all this rethinking and re-examining was going on, right? We've seen it over a period of time. There was a time when just the organizational brand was good enough to attract and retain talent. Then it became compensation and benefits. Then it started talking about growth and development, right? And now it's about experiences and fulfillment and a sense of belonging. So if you decode that fulfillment and go back to what Raksha was saying, lack of meaningful relationships at work, for example, right? The feeling of loneliness and fatigue that many people have gone through over the last 1.5 years, the burnout that people might be going through, and a sense of low energy kind of compared to that. Have we as organizations kept pace with that evolution of the workforce? Have we as organizations kept pace with the expectations? Have we been in a constantly listening mode? And I really believe that organizations who were thinking that and to Sahil's point, who were going beyond compensation and, to the point of this thing, redefining the value proposition to say, how do I redefine my value proposition in light of the evolving workforce expectations, are the ones who will continue to win the talent game. That's my feel, my feed on this.
Thank you, Sudeep. So shifting gears to retention now, many organizations are making financial investments in people for retention. How long do you think companies can sustain the cash components? And what are the levers that organizations can leverage as best practices for retention? And what we'd really like from all of you speakers is if you can give us some real-time examples and share that with us, it's going to be of great help. So we'd like to go around and hear from all of you. So
we lost you for a moment, Mercy. Was it my network?
No, we lost you for a minute.
So maybe you could. So Raksha, do you want to go ahead?
Yes, sure. So Raksha, would you like to go ahead, please?
Sure, absolutely. I think what we've done is we've looked at, and I'll keep it short. We've looked at multiple things that matter to an employee. How do we retain the employee? We've created manager playbooks. We've looked very seriously at the outcomes that are coming in from the stay interviews. We've looked at how holistically can we design our total rewards. And I call it total rewards because it's not only compensation. There are multiple other things that an organization has to offer when they're looking at employees. So we've done some of these things, and let me come back. We've launched an initiative called Talent Agility, which basically means create opportunities for employees within the organization. Look at different segments, get them mentorship opportunities, do speed mentoring probably, have coffee sessions with some identified mentors, have talent marketplaces, be open about accepting that people will want to try different things. They are no more going to be sticking in a job for very long. They want to learn, they want to grow, and give them those opportunities. Design things that will attract them to stay with your organization. Give them cross-functional experiences. What kind of fellowships we have a very interesting concept of fellowship, where we have anywhere between 6 weeks to a year, these fellowships, where an organization, let's say giving you an example, a person in recruitment can do a fellowship with total rewards organization, or can do a fellowship with sales organization, and so on. How are you encouraging the work-life balance, allocations of working schedules, work together as a team and prioritize the overall well-being of the team? Have those connects. So those are things that we've done. We've also got some of the great, some industry speakers and who can help talk about how do we manage our well-being, our health overall. So it's an overall spectrum of the employee that we are looking at, and trying to ensure that we give them the experience or that connected or the feeling of belongingness with our organization. Over to you, Mercy.
Thank you, Raksha. So passing the same question on to Sahil now.
So I think, Mercy, again, we've done three things, right? One, at an organization level, we're very, very clear that we don't have all the answers, right? But what we do have is, as clarity emerges, we communicate, and communicate. And I think the ability to be vulnerable, to really go out there and say, yes, we're also figuring it out, makes people believe and feel that, yes, we're in it together. That's one at an organization level. Number two, we've heard this for decades as we grew up, that people don't leave organizations, they leave managers. And therefore, we believe that the mid-level managers are the ones who are interacting with colleagues on a daily basis. And interacting with them, they are the face, they are the feet on the ground. And the ability to coach them to deal with people, to say, you might be a task-oriented human being, but this is the time to explore your people side. You may go in and go, tuck, 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 tuck. What happened on this? Give me that report. What's the update? But hello, please pause and also ask the person, what happened last night? Are you all right? Because that's important. Because otherwise, if you're going to be a toxic manager, you're going to be a very high-oriented task manager, people are not going to really connect with you, because at the end of the day, they don't work with you, they work for you, they work together. It's a team at the end of the day. And the third is the ability to go at an individual level to let people open up and talk. I really liked what Sudeep spoke about, saying, are we being a listening organization? And I think the day people start believing that you are not listening is the day they keep quiet. And when they go quiet, it's disaster. It's not that everyone who speaks wants an answer. People are mature enough to know that some things will be work in progress, some things will take time, some things may not even get implemented because they may not be practical. But what people do need are two things. One, active listeners. And two, people to come back and close the loop and not say, we will get back to you and never get back to you. People need people to come back and say, you know what, you gave this idea, fantastic. We're going to pick it up next quarter. Or you gave this idea, superb. We're creating a cross-functional team like Raksha spoke about it. Do you want to not just give the idea, but do you want to come and be part of this team in terms of the implementation? And I think these three things, because I attended the previous session and really liked what the speaker said, that if everything is important, nothing is important. And therefore we said, we're not going to make everything important. We're just going to say three things at 3 layers. Let's get it sorted. And I think we've done a reasonably good job of that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sahil. And lastly, Raksha, would you like to add your thoughts on it as well?
That's okay.
I think I started.
So Sudeep, would you like to go next, please? Sorry.
That's fine. No, I think I don't think I have anything to add, honestly, to what Raksha and Sahil said. My only additional point would be to think about it as an approach, right? And one of my favorite analogies is really to think about the employees and the workforce today as a consumer, and remember that we are the product, right? HR and TA teams often tend to think the opposite, but if we think of ourselves as a product and we think of ourselves as a marketing organization, how will we approach this? The world has changed, our consumers have changed, and their preferences have changed. So if we are in a constantly listening mode, if we are engaging in conversations, then what we've really done in the last 6 to 8 months, exactly on the lines of what everyone else has said, is co-design everything, right? So everything that we've done, whether it be career fairs, whether it be manager capability programs on the lines of fitness, we called it MFIT, whether it be well-being programs and designs, whether it be rollout of new sort of wellness champions, have all been in conjunction with our workforce in a constant dialogue to say, what do people feel they need? And that's what we are trying to give back to them. But I think the most important point is a kind of a reinforcement of what Sahil said. This is a very, very transitional period for managers and leaders. And they are under more pressure today than they ever were before. So I think it is incumbent. I mean, poor guys, they get, they are getting pressured from all sides, from the organizations, from their teams, etc. So I think what we need to do really is invest in their enablement and help them make that transition of saying that from being managers who were supposed to lead teams and drive high performance and high productivity and so on, how do you layer that with more empathy and compassion and listening skills, which we know is not that easy. I think that transition is wherever it's worked, and we can see that across teams, it's worked very well, and it definitely impacts our ability to attract and retain talent. And wherever it doesn't work, the impact is also very apparent.
Absolutely. Sudeep, we'd like to continue another question to you. As the industry observes a surge in demand for talent, candidates hold multiple offers and have multiple options to choose from. What is your take on the strategy that organizations can adapt to continue to attract and bring new talent into the organization without disrupting the existing structures?
I think we've kind of said that in so many forms so far. I think the ability to go back and really rethink about what a value proposition is, right? And if you can go back and think about what is it that people are getting attracted towards and what is it that people are staying with you for? I mean, there are also plenty of organization, employees and associates who are with us. There are high performers who continue to have great careers. What is it that's keeping them there? What's keeping them engaged? That is actually the root of your value proposition. So I think changing that value proposition and communicating that effectively, consistently, repeatedly is, I think, what's going to be the root of anyone being able to sort of ride this wave rather than getting sort of submerged by it.
Surely. Thank you, Sudeep. So it's almost time for us to wrap up our discussion. So one last question to all of you. Please share one thought that you want your audience to leave with. So anybody can go first. I'll leave it to you to choose.
So Marcy, I'll go. I think it is about empathetic leadership and listening to your employees. These are two very important factors which will help us tide through this extremely uncertain situation. We don't have all the answers. We are vulnerable, and it is okay to say that.
Sahil?
So I think we've had a slightly serious discussion. Let me just lighten the tone a bit. I think this is like, taking a lady out for a lovely date night, right? And you go to a fantastic place with a great ambiance, lovely cutlery, the cuisine that she loves having. You have a wonderful meal together, great conversation. All of that is wonderful. At the end of it, you ask the lady, will you be mine? And the lady says yes, and you decide a date for engagement. All right. And you just vanish because you go on a cruise or you go on your ship sailing, and you after 6 months come back and say, or 3 months come back, or 2 months come back at the end of the notice period that the person's serving and say, okay, all ready for the engagement. Doesn't work. And I think that's exactly what we need to pick up. The whole aspect of an interview can't just be an interview till an offer letter is given. It can't just be a wonderful experience for the 1 or 2 days that the person is interviewed with you, or the lovely place you went to for a date night. It has to be continuous engagement, a sense of belonging, a sense of connect, a sense of affection, a sense of belongingness through the period till the person joins you. And if you really can't wait 3 months for the engagement to happen, there are multiple ways that we all know that we can reduce the time between the first date night and the engagement. But what ends up happening is it's an open market. Everyone's swiping left, everyone's swiping right. The reality is, are you able to make sure you find the right partner? It's going to end on that, on a lighter note.
Thank you, Sahil. Okay, Raksha, please share your thought as well. And Sudeep,
I will again.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sudeep. Oh, I'm so sorry. I always think Sudeep,
okay.
You can go last.
That's okay. That's fine. No, I think I'll just say that I think we need to just internalize the fact that change is constant. I think HR teams need to stop reacting every single time there is a huge change in the ecosystem. The fact is there will be changes, and what we need to do is build our internal resilience and agility to proactively spot that change and be on top of it. I would actually discourage more conversations on this topic of the Great Resignation, because this is just discussing symptoms, and HR leaders need to go beyond discussing symptoms and go a little bit deeper than that.
Sure. Thank you, Sudeep. I think we are at 4:35, and I'm pretty sure our participants have a lot of questions to ask all three of you. So I'm going to take this opportunity to give it to our audience and let them ask the questions to you. So people on the call, please feel free to type in your question in the Q&A panel, and the most intriguing question will get awarded by our panelists here. So we'll pick 2 questions, and we are also going to give out some goodies to you. So go ahead and type. More than for the goodies, if you want to ask some interesting question to our panel, feel free to please type
in. That's a bit scary. Yeah, like we're literally opening us up to say, what is the most toughest and the most intriguing question that we can be asked on a Friday afternoon.
Yes, Sudeep. All right. So if anyone wants to join the panel on stage and ask a live question, feel free to do that. You just have to raise your hand and I'll hand the mic to you. You can join our panel on stage and ask a live question. So go ahead and raise your hands or type in your question, and I'll ask that to our panelists. Okay. So I see one from Zarina. She asks, what can companies do to stop reacting and being proactive?
I mean, let me take that, but I think I'll just repeat what all of us said. And in fact, Sahil said that is to just be in a constantly listening mode, right? If you are in a constantly listening mode, if the communication is always two-way, and like I keep saying, if you think of ourselves as a marketing function, what does a marketing and a sales organization do? Constantly interact, constantly chat, keep abreast of trends. I really feel that we can spot trends and be a lot more proactive than be reactive. That's really my own 2 bits on it.
Sure, Sudeep. And we have another question from Arun Das, and he asks, do you think retaining the talent during... One second, it just got rolled up. We have a lot of questions coming up.
No, I think it's there on the screen, so we can
That's
just,
right.
one of us can, Sahil or Raksha can respond to that.
Yes, please. Do you think retaining the talent during pandemic is much difficult than normal time? If yes, what are the reasons for the same? So go ahead, Sahil. You'd like to answer that question?
Raksha, do you want to take that? You've been rather quiet.
Okay, I was just avoiding it because it was from SAP.
Go ahead.
Okay, I think definitely it has been like, and I will underline the same thoughts that I've said before. Instilling that sense of purpose, that sense of connectedness, that feeling of also being proud to be associated with an organization. Probably somewhere as HR, we also need to ensure that our people feel proud of what we do as an organization. Understand, look at it holistically on what do we have to offer an employee. It is not all about compensation always, and we've seen that multiple times. It is also about feeling wanted. What kind of work am I getting to do? Am I getting to do the most challenging work of my life here? Or probably what I do right now is what I want to do at this stage of my career. Those are things, those coffee corner conversations. Sometimes people feel isolated. They don't have anybody to vent out. I think it's always a good idea to have a colleague at work, a friend at work, which we've all seen, right? Those conversations and those relationships which would go beyond work are probably not getting developed. So those are definitely it is difficult to retain talent, and more than what it was when we were all in an environment which was hybrid. SAP has always had flexible working schedules. We've had people come on into office, out of office, etc. But then yes, it does put all of us in a difficult situation when we are all in different parts of the globe.
I think, Arun, just to chime into what Raksha said so beautifully, I think the last 12 to 18 months have been testimony to the fact of, for generations, what we've been putting on the walls of our offices, which is our values, right? Our mission, our vision, our values, right? And many organizations during these difficult testing times have actually lived those values. And there have been others during these difficult times who have not lived those values as much. And therefore, employees are now going back to what Sudeep said right in the beginning, and Raksha also alluded to, which is this whole concept of saying, do I see congruence between my values and the organization's values? And when people don't see that during difficult times, that's when they say, okay, let's call it quits because I don't belong here. Sorry, Mercy, back to you.
Thank you, Sahil. So one last question we have from the audience that we can pick. And here's the question. It is very complex phenomenon, requires complex views and understanding through complex research and data. What are your views and suggestions? This is from Rupande Padaki, ma'am. Would you like to take that one, Raksha?
Sure, I can go. I think it's complex. Yes, certainly. Break it down into pieces. Look at it as involving your employees, your managers, and also listening to the views of your own HR people. And that's what we've done. Have multiple focus group discussions, one-on-one interviews, but bring all of that data together and then build out on the trends. It's very interesting to see the thoughts that come in, the conflicting thoughts that come in when we do that. But that helps us understand exactly what the pulse of people is. So divide the groups or divide your entire organization and your entire structure into smaller pieces. It takes effort, yes, and that is what we should be doing. And that is when we would be able to listen and understand what's going on. Like in a family, right? If you have a kid and if you don't listen, you don't know what's going on in the mind. Especially if you're a parent of a teenager, you would relate to it, right? You don't talk, the person doesn't talk to you back. The kid doesn't talk back to you. It's similar. People need pampering. People need to be heard. That is an innate desire to be heard. And that is how, if you break it into different pieces, look at it from different angles, we'll be able to solve this complex problem. Or at least try to solve this.
Sure. Thank you, Raksha. So we have Ritu Bhaskar. Oh, Ritu, you stopped raising your hand. Are you on? Yes, please. I'll hand mic to you and then you can ask a question. Ritu's here.
Hi,
please go
everyone.
ahead, Ritu. You can ask a question.
Thank you. And I really appreciate, all the very, I've really made a note of the congruent statement that you made, Sahil. I can so resonate. And yes, when we look at the exit data, people give reasons for exit as better opportunity, more salary, better position, and all of that. But I feel that I will first think of going on a Naukri or a LinkedIn to look out for a job because something about my current role has put me off. So when we go back and we discuss this with the managers and leaders, they have a simple answer that people are leaving because we're not paying them well or we're not giving them promotions. And that's like an ongoing debate with managers and HR because they feel like we only look at the softer things. We don't look at the ground reality, and what they have to deal with every day. So do you have any practices where you can, like whatever you are saying obviously makes logical sense, but have you practiced something within your organizations to help the managers and the leaders see that side and feel convinced with it?
Let me take that, and I would love to hear from the other panelists as well. But I think two things, right? One, data, like the previous question mentioned. When people say, what are the basics of setting up a new team in HR? Before anything else, I would say get a data analyst and a data scientist on board. I think that is super critical because if you slice and dice the data, and if you start analyzing the patterns, you're able to reflect back to the leaders and managers that level playing field, like the same people are getting opportunities in another team as well. Why is another team facing a slightly different pattern compared to yours? So I think that helps, number one. The second piece that has helped us is we also have contracted with an external agency that has behavioral psychologists. And they conduct exit interviews with our associates 2 months after they've left the organization. So they are able to go deeper and come back to that point that you mentioned, that psychological point where you either go online and start looking, or you respond to a call and say, yes, I'm open to looking. They're able to go back to that psychological point and determine the what people would say are softer, but actually are the harder factors that are the root cause of some of this exit trend. So that's another thing that's helped us and keep ourselves honest.
Thank you, Ritu. Thanks for joining the stage and asking that question, and Sudeep for taking it. So I think we are at the top of the hour. So it's time to choose the winning question. Panel, would you like to pick top 2 questions, please?
You really put us in a spot. We could answer the rest of all your questions, Mercy, but this one's a tough one.
All right, sure. So yet, we'd love to hear from you. Sahil, Sudeep, Raksha.
I mean, I think it's very
I would like the question.
But thought provocative. So.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Sure. We'll take it from there. So we'll reach out to 2 of you all, Ritu for joining us on stage and asking the live question, and Arun's question. So we'll pick those 2 questions, and then we'd like to hand over a small goodie. So please write to us at reachers@nhrdbangalore.com, and we'd like to send over those goodies to you. And all the others who asked questions, thank you so much. Your questions were extremely amazing as well. But since we're just speaking two, we're going with that. But then you've been an amazing audience, and we really hope that you enjoyed this session. So thank you, everybody, for engaging yourself and joining this session. And Sahil, Raksha, and Sudeep, thank you so much for joining us. This is the most important topic that's been driving us all in the last few months. So it was extremely important for us to hear from you, and you've been amazing, and you've shared some great insights with all of us. So thanks a lot for joining us and being with us today. So with that, I'd like to close the session. Thanks, everybody. And
Mercy, thank you. Sorry, before you just close, thank you so much, Mercy, to you as well. You've been a fantastic moderator, balancing the questions out there and also interacting with us. So thank you to you. And Ritu, while you enjoy the goodies, go back to the song from Madonna on Frozen. And as you listen to those lyrics, you'll allude to what Sudeep said. You only see what your eyes want to see. Let data tell you the rest of the story. Signing off, people. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right. Just taking one more minute to call out the next session, please. So dear audience, we have the next session starting very soon from now, Inclusion Outlook for the Future. So please join us there and see you at the next session. Tweet your experience and photos with this hashtag HR Showcase 2021. Do share your feedback of HR Showcase by clicking on the link that we've posted in the public chat available in reception. So with that, thank you all, and we will close the session and see you all in the next one. You've been amazing. Thanks to the speakers and the audience. Signing off, and thank you, Ranjit.
Thank you, Ranjit. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.